Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is time for the pre-match build-up show with Liverpool taking on Unai Emery's Arsenal at the Emirates in an absolutely massive game this Saturday. And it is a massive game for both sides. I think both Liverpool and Arsenal obviously come into this knowing that it's a six-pointer, knowing that it's a chance to lay down a huge marker at this stage of the season. And also it's a game where both teams have got a little bit of a challenge to overcome, I think. For us, it's certainly a big test for our defence. And, you know, our defence is obviously passed so many tests already this season, but up against one of the league's best attacks we've seen over the last few weeks and months, what Unai Emery's Arsenal are capable of. They are capable of putting together the kind of moves that look almost impossible to defend. You know, when they click, they really do click and they move through the gears, and it can be incredible to watch. But if they do that against Liverpool this weekend, it's going to be so tough for our defenders, and I think it's so important that all of them are at the absolute top of their game. And also for Arsenal, it's probably their first big game of the season since those first couple of games, and I think the first big game of the season since they really started to form an identity under Unai Emery. And I think that's what makes this game so fascinating, because we don't really know what to expect from Arsenal, and I will of course come on to them a little bit more later on the video and how I think they will end up playing. But we haven't seen this Arsenal that, like I said, has played such beautiful flowing football over the last few games actually come up against a team as good, if not better than them. You know, the only time we saw them play against big teams was in those opening games of the season against City and against Chelsea, where it didn't quite feel like they were at the kind of level that I think they are at now. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see how this one pans out and to see what kind of Arsenal shows up against Liverpool. So kicking off once as always with the team news. There isn't that much in terms of injury news for Liverpool, which is obviously fantastic going into a game of this magnitude. Mo Salah is going to be absolutely fine, despite pictures that showed him wearing some sort of wrist cast thing in training. I don't see why that would have hindered him in the first place, but news does suggest that he is absolutely fine. He's been in full training and everything, so absolutely nothing to worry about there if you were concerned about Mo Salah being available or not for this week. Apart from that, obviously Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is not a doubt. He is completely out for this game. There is no chance of him playing, as there is for many months to come. Apart from that, Naby Keita and Jordan Henderson are unfortunately continuing to be unavailable for Liverpool. They have yet to even return to full training, so I think it's starting to look unlikely that we will actually see them in Liverpool shirts until probably after the international break, because we've got a game this weekend, a midweek match against Red Star, and then the home game against Fulham the weekend after that, and then we do have a 2-week break, and I think it's after that that we'll start to see either whether Naby Keita and John Henderson will return, or at least see them return to full training and return to contention to start in that Liverpool first team. So moving on to how I think the team are actually going to line up for the game against Arsenal. It is obviously very interesting in a number of places, not least how Jurgen Klopp goes with his formation, because that 4-2-3-1 worked so effectively against Red Star Belgrade and also against Cardiff, but playing against a team like Arsenal, especially away from home, is a totally different kettle of fish. You know, one of the strengths of the 4-2-3-1 was it allowed us to have an extra player playing forward, and it meant that, you know, we sort of got round the problem we had of having too many workman-like midfielders who didn't necessarily have the attacking flair required to get the best out of our forward players on the pitch. And that works fine when you're playing against teams that you are obviously so much better than. But it will certainly be interesting to see how Jurgen Klopp lines the team up, given that this is now the kind of games that we played in the Champions League last season, where we did go with the 4-3-3, where it was much more about the counter-attack and about simply having that midfield three dominate the middle of the park and leave it up to the attackers in terms of the goal scoring and the flair and the creativity and stuff like that. In terms of how we're going to go defensively, I think in goal it has to be Alisson Becker. You know, this will be certainly an interesting game, one where you'd expect him to come forward and shine. He's probably going to come under a little bit of pressure, and hopefully he can come up with the kind of big saves that we can look back on at the end of the season and say that is why we paid £67 million for that man. In terms of the defence, I think you go with Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk at centre-back. I don't think you want any messing around here whatsoever. I think you just go with the best players available. There is a potential argument for going with Dejan Lovren and then moving Joe Gomez out to right back, and I can see where people are coming from on that front, but I just think Gomez and Van Dijk has worked so well so far this season, and what you really want in this game is solid communication between your centre-backs. And I also think with the speed that Arsenal attack at, I worry that Dejan Lovren could get caught out as a front foot defender. He likes to occasionally rush out and try and take players on, win the ball back with speed against them. And if that doesn't work, he could leave a massive space open in our back line, and Arsenal have the players to exploit that to maximum effect and potentially get several goals against us due to Dejan Lovren. So I think we should go with Gomez and Virgil van Dijk at centre-back. I think that's what Jurgen Klopp's going to do as well. And then the full-backs, I think you go with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson. Going to be a really interesting game from both of them, because while we normally expect them to offer a lot of attacking flair, I think this is the kind of game where both of them are actually going to have their work cut out defensively, simply because of the amount of threat that Arsenal offer going forward. Moving on into the midfield, I think we are going to stick with the 4-2-3-1, and the reason for that is that I think Wijnaldum and Fabinho offer enough defensive cover, should Jurgen Klopp choose to start them, that we can afford to play simply in midfield two and then another front four essentially ahead of them. So the big call is, of course, whether or not you play Fabinho, because in an ideal world, he's absolutely perfect for this game. He is a midfield destroyer. He's fantastic at stopping counter-attacks. He's got great defensive ability and is also capable of driving forward with the ball into space when that's asked of him. So I think ideally you'd go with Wijnaldum and Fabinho as the midfield pairing. The one question is, of course, whether or not Fabinho is as integrated into the first team and into the way that Jurgen Klopp wants him to play as he needs to be for a game of this magnitude. I think the alternative is actually to go with a midfield three, where you keep Fabinho in, but you also have James Milner in there, so as to kind of offer a little bit of extra cover should anything go wrong for Fabinho. But I mean, we've seen Fabinho play as a number 6 in a 3 for Liverpool, where he did it, I think it was against Chelsea in the League Cup, and also in a number of substitute appearances after that. But when we've seen him play in that midfield too, he just looks so much better, and he looks at home alongside Gini Wijnaldum. And I think because of the pair of them are so good defensively, I think we can afford to play that midfield too. And obviously that does match Arsenal's preferred formation as well, because that is the formation they have been playing so far this season predominantly. And then I think ahead of them, you have Shaqiri on the right. He is a player that I think you absolutely have to start this game, especially because it's unlikely he'll play against Red Star Belgrade away from home due to all the political tensions there. So if he's not going to play in midweek, you should definitely start him in this match. And he's just been in such excellent form recently that he is almost undroppable at the moment. And he is one of the reasons, again, that I think we go with that 4-2-3-1, because it's the formation he plays best in. It also means we can get Firmino, Mane and Salah on the pitch as well, and it gets the best out of him because he is capable of providing absolutely excellent service for those players. And after he got his first competitive Liverpool goal against Cardiff as well, fingers crossed he can kick on and get another few this weekend. That would be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I think you go with Shaqiri on the right, Firmino in that number 10 role that he's been playing over the last few games, Mane on the left-hand side, and then ahead of him, I think you have Mohamed Salah as the lone number 9. And I think that's the kind of formation that would really work, because you've got that solid base of defenders, you've got a solid base of two midfielders as well, and Shaqiri and Mane and Firmino can all come back and occasionally do a little bit of extra work, fill in the spaces, make sure that we don't lose out on the midfield battle or anything like that. But by having Salah play up front on his own, it just means you constantly have that threat on the counter-attack that I think will cause Arsenal so many problems. So taking a look at Arsenal then, their biggest problem going into this game is that they have an absolutely mammoth injury list. It's something that I've trailed in the title for this video, and I think it will really have a huge bearing on this game, simply because the sheer amount of players that are unavailable for Arsenal. You have got some long-term absentees in there, like Laurent Koscielny and Mavropanos, so already that's a centre-back pairing that I think Emery was expecting to be able to rely on, unavailable for this game. They're also missing Mohamed El Neni through injury. You've got Bellerin, Kolasinac and Monreal, all fullbacks. All of them are doubts for this game, given that they are carrying injuries, and all of them will have to be assessed. So, I mean, even if they are available for the match, it's kind of a real problem for Emery, because he might not want to risk them, because they won't have done too much training throughout the week because of the injuries that they will have been carrying. And you have also got Matteo Guendouzi suspended through picking up his red card in the League Cup last night. So it's a real problem for Arsenal there, especially because all of those players are injured in the defensive area of the pitch, and that is somewhere that they have struggled with so far this season. You know, they've conceded something like 13 goals or something like that, which is more than 3 times the amount that Liverpool have conceded in the league. And while they have sort of been a free scoring team that have continued to pick up results, there are certainly always doubts about that Arsenal back line. And when they're missing that many players, you do start to wonder wonder who they're actually going to put into the side, because, I mean, what they've been doing recently is they've been having Lichtsteiner at right back. Now, he's a bit old and slow, I think it's fair to say, and if you put him up against Sadio Mane and Andrew Robertson, that could end up in a little bit of a bloodbath for him. On the other side, they've been using Granit Xhaka as a temporary left back, which has produced mixed results. You know, sometimes he's solid, other times he has made some pretty silly errors. The penalty against Crystal Palace that he concedes being a very clear example of that. And, you know, you think about him up against someone like Xherdan Shaqiri or Mo Salah down Liverpool's right-hand side. That, again, will not end nicely for Arsenal, I think it's fair to assume. And also the problem with Granit Xhaka as well is the fact that with those midfield players missing, you know, without Mohamed El Neni, without Matteo Guendouzi as well, they're going to need someone to partner Torreira in the middle of the park in that midfield too. And if they have to move Xhaka out to there, then they're then playing Maitland-Niles at left back. Now, he's a decent player, a decent prospect. He will probably go somewhere as a footballer, but I think it's a little bit early to be playing him in a game of this magnitude. So Arsenal have got some huge issues there. And even if those players do become available for the match, the idea of risking them when they haven't trained is something that I think will certainly be playing on Emery's mind at the moment. So I think Arsenal will certainly struggle defensively in this game. When you look at their previous performances against teams like Crystal Palace, they just don't look like they have that much defensive organisation. I think positionally, they are all over the shop. And even, you know, they've been criticised for this high line they play and the fact that they can easily be caught out on the counter. And that is something that Liverpool will certainly try to do. But even when they get those players back, and I think some of it is due to the injury issues and the fact that it's always a makeshift back line that they're playing at the moment, even when those players are in the box, when they're filling in the spaces, they're always in the wrong areas and they're always just leaving players unmarked. And if you do that up against this Liverpool team, especially this front four, which is playing such fluid football at the moment, you know, if you're not paying the absolute most attention you possibly can, then they are just going to show up all over the shop anywhere that you don't expect them to be, and they are going to wreak havoc with your defence. So I think Arsenal are really, really going to struggle defensively. But as I said, this is a massive test for our defence as well, because obviously this Arsenal attack is absolutely fantastic at the moment, and I don't think Emery is going to spare any punches in terms of how he lines up attackingly. I think you are going to see Lacazette, you are going to see ARSLIV, you are going to see Aubameyang as well. All of them are players who are capable of turning the game on its head. All of them are players who are capable of scoring a hat-trick and blowing Liverpool out the water and something like that. And that is why we can't take anything for granted in this game. And if there's one thing Liverpool will have to make sure they do, it is finish their chances, because we could quite easily walk all over Arsenal. But if we don't finish our chances, they can so easily go up the other end and punish us. So this is a fascinating game. You know, you've got an attack with Liverpool that is finally clicking into gear up against a defence that looks like it is really up against it at the moment. You've got an Arsenal attack which is playing wonderful football against a Liverpool defence which is supposedly impenetrable at the moment. So there are so many interesting things about how this game is set up, and I think if I was a neutral, I'd really be looking forward to it. As a Liverpool fan, I'm still looking forward to it because I think we've just slightly got the better of Arsenal. We've seen that so far this season with the results that we've been getting, and I still reckon Liverpool are going to get the win. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, hit that subscribe button there. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back on Saturday evening after we've hopefully battered Arsenal in their own backyard. Until then, bye for now.